Okay. All right. So, welcome to Syndicated Nightmares, where each week we take a deep dive into an episode of Freddy's Nightmares based on the Nightmare on Elm Street film series. Hosts Dave and Michelle are joined by Jerome Wetzel of It's All Been Done Presents, and they are covering episode 14, Black Tickets, which aired February 5th, 1989, written by Howard Lakin and directed by George Cassender. Okay, welcome, Jerome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So, this episode is known as the Brad Pitt episode. It was his claim to fame. It's what got him started.
Although the picture quality was so bad, it took me a minute to realize it was him.
Oh, you thought he was bad in this? I thought he was...
No, the picture quality was so bad.
Oh, yes, yeah.
on the website where I watched it legally. It was really hard to tell, but it was him.
Mm-hmm.
That's the downfall of having bootleg copies. You can't really count on the quality of the episode.
I think this is that he was already a working actor at this point. I think he had done a few things before this, but it was definitely before he made it big.
Okay, so this episode is about a young couple elopes in search of freedom, but find themselves trapped in Springwood.
It starts out they've just gotten married. They say it's the first night of our honeymoon, so they've just gotten married that day, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
They left college and eloped, and they're driving, and then we come upon them when their car is just broken down right outside of Springwood city limits.
Yeah, now are they from Springwood?
Doesn't seem like.
It doesn't seem like it, but then in the second half, she's working at Springwood Records. So
they talked about settling down. I felt like, that maybe they just decided to stay in that town.
Because they liked it so much.
Well, if you've already been hit by a truck in the town once, it's unlikely you're going to get hit again.
Yeah, that's true. Rick is Brad Pitt. So Rick and Miranda are spending their honeymoon in Springwood. And their car broke down, and then a phone booth mysteriously appears from nowhere.
Yeah, they've been walking for a while, and they find a phone booth, and then suddenly Rick gets run over by a van.
But he's okay. He's actually pretty good.
Yeah, and the next scene he's okay.
And is that before the elderly couple stops to help them?
Yes, it's right before.
Yeah, so he gets hit by this van, and then the van just drives off. And then an elderly couple stops to help them, but the elderly couple says that they have to call their parents before they'll help them, because Rick and Miranda eloped without their parents knowing because they wanted their independence. But they don't want to call their parents because they're freaked out about what they'll say. So the elderly couple, instead of helping them, they end up robbing them. And when the elderly couple leaves, their bumper sticker says, "We're spending our children's inheritance."
Yeah.
Yes.
The old woman is Ellen Albertini Dow, who I remember as the little old lady rapper in the movie The Wedding Singer.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah, she was great.
Such a distinctive voice.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. They drive off with all their cash, and then a tow truck driver comes, and the tow truck driver is played by Bill Moseley. Jerome, do you know him from anything?
Nope, but then I don't watch horror movies almost ever, so that's probably why I didn't know him.
I was talking to Dave before we started the episode or recording this, that it'll be fun to have someone who isn't a horror fan per se come on here and still give thoughts on the episode. And the likability of this episode isn't weighed so heavily on just Freddy's appearance, but just based off merit itself by the writing or just the actors.
Yeah, I mean, I have to confess, I have never seen a Nightmare on Elm Street film at all.
Oh, wow.
So this was my first thing I've ever seen Freddy in.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, great, buckle up.
Right. It's not really representative of the film series, so if you watch the movies, don't expect it to be like this.
This podcast, so
Bill Moseley is known mostly for his work in Devil's Rejects and House of a Thousand Corpses. So anyway, so Bill Moseley is the tow truck driver, and he comes to help them out, but all outlets of their independence are taken away. They have no cash, no credit card, no car. They're just basically stranded there. So they they use the payphone anyway to call their mom and dad, but their answering machine picks up, and their answering machine just basically is a message directly to them about how irresponsible they are and they'll never be forgiven and, don't come back home.
Right. And doesn't it say, like, we're destroying all your stuff?
Yes.
We burned all of your stuff when we rented out your room.
Mm-hmm.
They're in this phone booth trying to get their parents to help them out. And then the phone booth traps them inside. And the tow truck driver takes them to the Brothers Motel, which gave a House of 1,000 Corpses vibe, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was like fish themed. There were fish all over the wall, and one of the fish had someone's hand coming out of it. It had a creepy vibe to it. Oh, I wrote into my notes, like, why aren't they weirded out? Because why aren't Rick and Miranda weirded out? Because it's this odd place, and they're just like, oh, okay, great. We have a place to sleep.
Maybe they were just like in appreciation because they're pretty much destitute right now, and Bill Moseley is being kind enough to, I don't know, tow their truck for free, it seems like, and giving them a place to stay. So beggars can't be choosers, I guess.
And they say it's like their mission to find people and help them. Bill Moseley and his brother say that.
Yeah, they're on Route 66, and they have a philosophy to save others and change lives. That's like their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they give them the honeymoon suite for free, which is very generous.
I thought it was a bit odd because the tow truck guy was kind of like, no, I need money. Sorry. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, he, now they're with his friend, their brother, that's like, yeah, you could just stay here for free. I don't know. It seemed like a pretty quick switch.
Well, the honeymoon suite, it seems nice, but there's like snakes in the bed and piranhas are in the jacuzzi tub.
They find the snake in the bed, and Brad Pitt goes to complain, and they say, you're an adult, make your own bed.
Yes.
Yeah. So he goes back to, I don't know, get the snakes out of the bed or something. But when he comes back, he gets arrowed by a cupid that's hanging on the wall. And then he puts his hand in the jacuzzi, and then the piranhas eat his hand.
Well, I guess we're supposed to assume that his wife was already eaten.
Yeah, since she was in the jacuzzi. Then he wakes up, and it turns out it was all a dream. His hand is okay. Miranda is alive. Everybody's okay.
Yeah, I assume the phone booth trapping them was also a dream then? Like, this is the second dream?
It turns out that the car did break down. They were towed to the motel, but instead of getting shot by an arrow, they ended up celebrating. So they had a nice little honeymoon.
Yeah, and Miranda's now had a change of heart, and she wants to head back home. She wants them to earn their independence.
Yeah.
But not before she goes into the sauna. Thought the whole theme of this part of the episode was interesting, what they did with that. Like, that whole idea you have when you're, around 18 years old, that, like, I know everything and I can do everything myself, and just sort of not realizing how dependent you are on your parents.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, so it was interesting that they took this sort of real world thing that people experience. And I mean, I guess that's what they try to do in every episode, a real terror, but difficult thing in life, and turn that into a nightmare thing.
Yeah.
Well, and then she actually did okay on her own. She got out of the sauna. She got trapped in on her own, and
right.
Everything's out. Like This was the one scene where nobody died in the episode.
True. Well, the cops died though, didn't they?
Oh yeah, I forgot about them. They weren't important.
Right.
Miranda goes to the sauna, and then Rick calls the mechanic to check on the car. And then for some reason, Miranda gets trapped in the sauna, and Rick tries to get help, but then the police show up and they arrest him. But did they ever say why they were arresting him or why they showed up?
No, he's holding an axe in his hands to, like, chop the door down to the sauna, but otherwise, I guess they just arrest him because he's holding an axe?
Yeah, but why were they there in the first place?
I don't know
if that's clear.
Yeah, I don't think that was ever established why they were there. I mean, it could have been a simple fix of just, we were in the neighborhood and we saw you running down the street with an axe and thought that we would engage and ask questions. So the police come and arrest him for unknown reasons, and they don't believe/care that Miranda is trapped in the sauna, and they take Brad Pitt down to the station anyway, or at least they try to, but Brad Pitt has other plans.
He goes nuts in the car, and then they apparently didn't have the budget to crash the car.
No.
So it's like, so you see it like go around a bend, and then all this smoke comes up. And then apparently he got out, and the cops died.
Yeah, it was a pretty big explosion too. So for Brad Pitt to be the only survivor, like none of them should have survived.
Yeah, I kind of feel like Brad Pitt's almost like the main character from Unbreakable, because he was hit by a car, and now he was in an explosion, and he still is running around just fine.
That's a really good point.
Rick kills the 2 cops in a car explosion, and he runs to the hotel to find that Miranda is alive, but he still wants to run to California anyway, which they end up literally running to California from Springwood. And I Googled map that just for fun, and it would take 738 hours to run from Springwood to California, but that's if you take the toll roads.
They probably stopped a couple of times along the way, though.
Oh, they would have to. I mean, like blisters.
Right.
Sleep, food, bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
Well, as they're running to California, they find a van, and then they decide, oh, we'll just drive the rest of the way there. But they don't get very far, because Miranda starts to give like this talk about how she doesn't want to run from her problems anymore, and she wants to go back home, and blah, blah, blah.
Right. She's sort of psychoanalyzing them that, we were just says we're scared of getting old and growing up and not being special, which is somewhat astute.
Yeah.
But then we come full circle, and the van that hit Brad Pitt at the beginning, now they're, driving the van, and and they're the ones that hit him.
Yeah. Yeah. So Rick hits a hitchhiker that's in the road, but it turns out it was actually him from the beginning of the episode.
I'll be honest, I was having trouble following the plot on what was dream and what was reality. Like, it just kept jumping around all over the place, where I was... Yeah, at that point, it almost felt like the end of an episode. I know there's more with the 2 of them, but that really felt like the end, and so that little twist, I was looking for like the Twilight Zone type revelation, but they really didn't follow up on it. They're just like, oh, okay, I guess we somehow went through time and that was fine.
Right.
You're exactly right on that. Like, we have this weird parallel time thing going on. And so Rick hit himself, but then in the second half of the episode, everything is just like normal life again. Except
Freddy is the cuckoo clock, so there is that time connection.
That's true.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the only part that Freddy's in for this one, except for like the very, very end.
Yeah, and at the very beginning, the car's broken down and he comes out from under the car.
That's right. Freddy's a mechanic now. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I like he refers to it as, he said they needed a crash course in growing up. So it's a fun Freddy pun there.
This leads us to the second half of the episode, where Rick and Miranda have decided to stay in Springwood, and Miranda has a job at Springwood Records. Jerome, are you familiar with our inside joke that everything in Springwood is named Springwood?
No, I'm not. I mean, I heard you mention it. I didn't realize it was everything.
Everything in Springwood is named Springwood whatever. And every single episode of Freddy's Nightmares that has something related to Springwood, like the business, it's Springwood Motors, Springwood newspaper, whatever.
And so Springwood, is it kind of like, it was almost like LA. I mean, the way they portrayed it in this episode.
Yeah. Springwood is supposed to essentially be like a small town where everybody knows everyone. But really, in like all reality, there's no way, just with how big Springwood is.
Well, and you don't see many small towns with a major record label.
Exactly.
It's true, yeah.
So the second half, we have Miranda working at Springwood Records, and Her boss tells her that if she puts 100% into her job, she'll advance in no time. But Miranda might be pregnant.
Yeah, and the boss is like, says things that aren't really okay to say, like, better not get pregnant because you can't do this job if you're a mother.
Well, I don't think she said you can't get pregnant. To me, I thought she was implying, well, you better abort that baby if you care.
Oh my God, is this a Freddy's Nightmares pro-choice episode?
Right. That's never discussed as an option, at least with Miranda and Rick. It's always like either she's pregnant or they have it, or she's not pregnant. They never take into consideration like she's pregnant, but they decide not to have it.
Well, see, I thought that was kind of implied in their conversation when Rick was, where she was like, well, I can't have a baby. It's going to derail my career. And Rick was like, well, I'll help out. I'll do 50%. I'll do. It was almost like, it was, to me, it implied that she was considering an abortion.
That
Rick
that's
was
true.
Anti-abortion and trying to talk her out of it.
And before she gets home to him, she's driving home from work and she's stopped at a light next to a woman driving a car full of screaming kids. And she sees that woman like hold a gun to her head, which I thought was funny because like if that really happened, you were stopped at a light next to someone doing that, you'd be like, oh my God, don't do that, put the gun down. But she just drives away.
Yeah, this episode was really down on being a parent.
Her boss, who is a female, tells her that motherhood and a career aren't compatible, and she'll basically be fired if she's pregnant.
Which is not legal.
Well, but then she kind of walks it back later about, I'll give you maternity leave. So it was kind of like, you're not being fired, you're just no longer on the career track to advance.
Yeah, but that's basically her boss is like, I have to give you maternity leave, but that doesn't mean you're going to have a job when you come back because she already hired some other young girl who, isn't pregnant.
Yeah. Women lose all value when they get pregnant, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, they do. Just like a cow. You can't. Once a cow gets pregnant, you can't use them for meat.
I did not know that about cows.
I only know that because it was in a Just the 10 of Us episode, final episode. I have no idea if that's even true, but it was in Just the 10 of Us, so I'm taking it as gospel. So. Yep.
Good to know.
So anyway, Miranda has a replacement at her job and is worried that it'll be permanent. And then she has the baby, and Rick is a security officer. And like the baby is crying in the background, but they're arguing about finances and sex. So Rick storms out and Miranda goes to follow, but then the bedroom turns into a jail cell.
Yes. Yeah, she's
very
trapped in there.
Very subtle.
Yeah. And she's also really upset about that he trades in the car for a station wagon.
Yeah.
For some reason, like that's treated as this awful thing that happens to her, that she gets a station wagon.
She wakes up and the jail cell was just a dream. And she gets a pregnancy test, and while she waits, she is taken to a lineup and is accused of not being ready to have a child. So like this officer comes in and takes her into the station and puts her in a lineup, and then like this guy is looking at her and he's like, yeah, that's her, she's not ready to be a parent.
Yeah, she's just sort of brought in there and berated for, how could you even think you were ready?
Yeah, being 18 and married and all that. Yeah. So she's interrogated and then placed in a sleep deprivation tank for unprepared mothers.
Because that's what an expectant mother needs, to get no sleep.
Yeah.
It's great for the baby.
As her punishment for not being prepared to be a mother, her friends' phone numbers are shredded. Like, they're just like ripped out of her little black book and they're just shredded right in front of her. She goes back home and her baby, whose name is Jane, baby Jane, is missing. She wakes up because while she was waiting for her pregnancy test, she had fallen asleep. So she wakes up and the pregnancy test is negative. However, fate has different plans for her.
Yeah, it was sort of Twilight Zone-y, that she's like so excited that she's like, I'm not pregnant, I'm free, and my life's not ruined, because she talked before that having a baby now would ruin her life. Yeah, and then she's jumping on the bed and the cuckoo clock falls off the wall. She trips on it and falls off the bed and hits her head.
I thought she had broken her neck at first and like she was dead. Yeah, it turns out she isn't dead.
She's got the mind of a child.
Yeah.
So Brad Pitt became a father.
Yeah, he did.
Yes.
Yeah. So Rick gets hauled into, I don't know if it's like a psychiatric ward or something, but he's talking to the doctor, and the doctor's like, don't be alarmed, it's a lot worse than what it looks like. And you see that Miranda is in this like padded room, and she is brushing a doll's hair because she's, like Jerome said, she's in a childlike psychosis. And that's the end of the episode.
We forgot to mention my favorite part when she's having her baby psychosis right before, when she thinks she might be pregnant, when she falls into the playpen and Brad Pitt and the doctor and the two other people sing to her.
They like sing her a lullaby.
Yeah, well, a parody of a lullaby with like awful lyrics.
Yeah, I thought Brad Pitt was really good in this, and I liked the overall plot of it. Some of it was kind of kooky, but I think because it was Brad Pitt, it was a lot better, and maybe that's why the episode is like a fan favorite, because Brad Pitt is in it.
And I thought, like, sometimes the message they're trying to send isn't so subtle, but I liked that it seemed like they put some thought into this episode and were really trying to say something and deal with real fears.
I mean, the way that it was hard to follow was annoying to me, that I wasn't sure what was happening and things kept resetting and weird. They didn't seem to have any set rules that they followed, which I did not like. I know there's a dream aspect to Freddy. It's inherent to the character and all that, but it just felt inconsistent with how they applied the rules in this episode, which I did not like. I also just really hated the way they portrayed parenthood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a common theme in Freddy's Nightmares to not know whether you're in a dream or awake, and dreams and reality flip-flop so much that it becomes quite confusing and hard to follow some of the episodes.
And see, I think it's okay to do dream stuff. The fact that you don't have a consistent set of rules you're following was what bothered.
Yeah, and that happens a lot in the Elm Street series, where it goes back and forth, but the execution is so much better. It doesn't take away from the movie at all. Don't, as a non-Elm Street movie watcher, don't let the TV series cloud your judgment on what a Elm Street movie would be, because the Elm Street movies are like 1,000 times better than these episodes.
So the main reason I haven't watched an Elm Street movie is I was afraid it would give me bad dreams, and I think that's quite possible. This episode, I mean, I don't know if it was because I watched it in the morning, broad daylight, whatever, but it did not scare me at all. So I appreciated that. I didn't want to be scared. I mean, I do watch some horror television. I watch The Walking Dead. I watch American Horror Story. But those have really solid stories to them.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was one of the better ones. I mean, I guess from my perspective, we're just, the last one we watched made no sense at all. The previous episode, Deadlines. So this was like a welcome relief. Like, oh, there's actual, there's the two main characters that are there through the whole episode, and there's a storyline you can follow. And yeah, I agree. It was a pretty dark view of parenthood, but it was, I guess it was less about parenthood itself and more about sort of like the fear of, can I do this? So I liked it. I thought it was one of the better episodes.
Yeah, I liked the first half of the episode. It was a little kooky in some parts with the whole flip flop of dream and reality, but overall I liked it. I really liked the end of the episode, where everything that she is afraid of having, she eventually becomes. So I really liked that. I thought that was great. If this was a movie, not so much an Elm Street movie, but just a standalone movie on its own, I think with quite a few more rewrites, it really could have been a great movie.
It was mostly enjoyable. cheesy and stuff. Definitely a product of its time. But I don't know. I guess, having watched some of the Twilight Zone and some of the other anthologies, I didn't think it was a strong showing for an anthology episode as a standalone. And again, I think it's just the rules of not being able to figure out what was going on and what the rules of the world were. That's the kind of thing that turns me off.
Yeah. I would say that if you had watched the earlier episodes, that you would have known to look for it. And that's kind of true, because it does it to you so often in every single episode. But even watching the pilot episode and like episode 2, 3, and 4, it just goes back and forth so much that, and at this point you're just kind of used to it.
Yeah, I think that's why, if I saw this on television, I don't think I'd end up watching it because of that, not being able to get past that.
So is it safe to say that in order for this series to have succeeded, they had to rely heavily on the die-hard Elm Street fans to keep it going?
I think that type of person would have enjoyed it. The people that like that Die Hard, or like the Freddy Krueger just premise. But I also think there are people that would not mind that rule issue and would just like to see goofy. I don't know. I mean, there wasn't a lot of horror on television in the 80s. There's starting to be now. Mm-hmm. But I think just horror fans in general, whether you were a Nightmare on Elm Street fan or not, would have probably appreciated having a horror series on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jerome, do you have anything that you would like to plug that you're doing or you have your hands in?
Sure. I mean, It's All Been Done Presents, the network that this podcast is part of, is my network. I run it. It's my passion project. I do a lot of stuff on it. And then if you're a television fan, one of the other programs on the network I co-host is It's All Been Trekked Before, where we watch old Star Trek, which is also sometimes cheesy and doesn't make sense. So we're watching the animated series right now. Those will start soon on the podcast. And some of those are pretty bad. I mean, Hanna-Barbera type cartoons from the 70s, you can imagine.
Yeah, that sounds really fun.
It is. It is. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us your 2 cents on the episode.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Please join us next week when we talk about Season 1, Episode 15, School Days, where Freddy helps us prep for the SATs. And we're joined by special guest Lisa Fuller.